Alright, we're going to be working on the shirt, and on here I'm adding some cadmium yellow, and I'm using a smaller brush. The bottom also has cadmium yellow. And I'm adding some highlights with cadmium yellow and some white, where I lightened the cadmium yellow with white. And at this point we're working with opaque paints. They're not thinned out. And I'm adding a little bit of light deep rose. And of course I'm putting some darker deep rose now for the shadow. Same thing here. And I'm lightening it because that's where the light's hitting it. And at this point, for the bottom of the shirt, I'm adding some phthalo green with some ultramarine blue. I've combined both of them, and then I'm using some of them separately. So in certain sections I use phthalo green all by itself and an ultramarine blue all by itself. And I'm adding the highlights with it, which is the number 1 highlight. And I knew where the highlights were because I had erased some of the paint with an eraser. And now I'm putting the number 2, which is the warm light, and that usually goes around the highlight. You can see that one a little bit better. I'm also now adding the cool light, which is a little bit darker, to start giving me that 3-dimensional look. I'm adding the halftone. And now I'm adding the shadow along with the halftone. There's the shadow, you see it better right there. I'm blending a little, drying my brush and blending the lights, highlight with the warm light, and eventually the warm light with the cool light with the halftone, and the halftone with the shadow. And I'm just following the form. I'm not sitting there going in circles. I'm just following the form of the arm, the form it's supposed to take place. And you will see me go back and add some highlights. it's getting lighter, so I'm adding some highlight. Now I'm working with the fingers. Now I wish that the quality of the picture would have been better with the fingers, but unfortunately it's not. And I'm going with the highlight at first. Going with the warm light. And I use the cool light for the pinkish side of the finger, underneath side of the finger, the palm side. And some halftone right there. There I used the shadow. The darkest color you will see is the shadow, but I just barely used some shadow. I didn't want to overpower it because I wanted to make the fingers look soft and fluffy. You know, when you look at people's fingers, they're kind of soft and round. And I'll just go back and blend with the form of the finger. See? I did want to focus a little bit more, but the more I focused, the more blurry it looked, so that was just how that was the best way. And of course I'm adding more highlights. To start giving me the phalange look on the finger that we have. Adding a little bit of the shadow. See? You can start seeing the form, the roundness of the finger. And there's a finger back there, it's in shadow. I was like, I'm missing a finger. There it is. Of course, I'm adding the reflected light. So it's important to put some warm reflected light after you put shadow, so that way it gives it that three-dimensional look. And light always bounces off anyways, though. And that's something you have to emphasize when you're doing a painting, after you're doing a shadow, to go ahead and put some reflected light in a painting, so that way your painting looks more realistic. You might not see it in real life, but in a painting it's always good to put it on there, that way it looks more real.